Yep.
Yes. It's your
Now we're being
Spectrum
recorded,
Internet
so
just
I
not
must- there you
functioning
go.
right.
There you go.
Okay, we're live, you guys. Just so you know.
Time to behave.
Well, it's optional, I guess.
Don't bully me, Matt.
See, and don't bait me, Jordan. You know how much I was waiting for that hug from Lincolnville. I'm still waiting for it. So whenever you guys are ready, come on down to Knox County. Exactly.
How are we doing?
All right.
Is that all we have so far, Jeremy?
Two more, Ashley McCown and Craig Curry.
Oh, Craig, okay.
And some folks, Peter and Greg and Lynn, we'll make sure that, and Ashley, make sure people introduce themselves today. Please and thank you.
Ashley, yes. I will introduce Ashley for you. Ashley is joining us for the first time. Welcome, Ashley.
Thank you very much.
She is a colleague of or friend of Lisa's, and so she roped her into joining us today.
Good to be with you all.
Good to have you. And Lynn, I don't know, have we seen you in person before, or actually seen you before? I'm not sure.
In person by Zoom? No, I actually I was on one other call, but I am on the technology committee for the town of South Thomaston. So I'm happy to be part of this. Thank you.
Nice to meet you. Nice to have you. So Peter, you're on. Would you like to?
I'm the chair of the Noble Broadband Committee, and I'm sitting in because Nate House, who is our vice chair, was not able to listen in after yesterday's, from what I gather, raucous meeting.
Yeah, welcome. I met Pete at an event at a
Midcoast Forum.
Midcoast Forum meeting. That's what it was. Yes. And Greg, I think this is your first time with us.
Is. Yeah, I'm Greg Hamlin. I'm representing Thomaston, Maine. I've been a past selectman, budget committee on the commissioner's side. It didn't sound like that meeting went very well, but I'm only guessing, but it doesn't surprise me.
Okay. And I think the others of us know one another. But if you guys look at the draft agenda that was sent out, you'll see that we have Lincolnville, Camden, South Thomaston, Hope, Melissa, John Gibbons here from Union, and Jeff from St. George, and Craig from Cushing on with us. So welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
We got Bob Kirk and Sarah Smith coming in too.
Oh, great. Okay, Sarah. Hello, Sarah. All right, and Bob Kirk, welcome. Bob is with the Southwestern Waldo County Broadband Group. Melissa and Sarah are both Hope. Okay, so with that, I just tried to shorten the introductions a little bit. The first item on the agenda, this is gonna be a short meeting tonight, I think everybody, well, maybe it won't be, but I think it will be. We have draft September 8th minutes. If people had a chance to review them. For those of you, before we get there, this is just a collection of representatives from towns. We have no legal standing or body or anything. So we run things pretty loose here compared to what we would do in a select board meeting, because we're just a voluntary group of volunteers. So in the coalition. So if anybody would like to make a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, who
Thank you.
seconded that?
I did.
Josh, okay. All in
Hey,
favor?
Deb.
Yes. All in favor, just raise your hands because, yeah.
I'll
Go ahead,
abstain.
Jeremy.
I just wanted to remind folks that we're live on YouTube and it is being recorded.
Yes, thank you. So does anybody want to vote against the minutes?
I'll abstain because I just added.
Okay. I think that we would list anybody who wasn't here as abstentions. Fine. So again, it's the next thing that we'll report by the leadership team on the first phase pathway project to unserved and underserved, and the next kind of grant application in EDA. So basically, we just kind of lumped this in together in terms of, what's going on. In terms of the, got some feedback there, in terms of the pathway project and what's going on from a funding perspective. So I'll just do a little background without talking about yesterday. I'll do a little bit of background that I think you all know, and we sent a copy of the application that we filed with Knox County, which was in excess of 20 some pages. It was the Rockport filed that with Knox County. Rockport has committed its first installment of 100 of ARPA funds, 177,500 or so of the ARPA funds toward what is phase one of our build project and is Rockport. And we've explained in past meetings why we've determined that it makes sense for Rockport to be phase one. We asked the county in that application for $750,000. The $750,000 plus the money from Rockport was intended to hopefully get us to about the $950,000 that we need to represent the materials to build that phase one project. Once we get that approximate $950,000 for materials as estimated by Axiom Technologies, our feasibility partner, then we can actually order the fiber and get on that fiber list, which can take 9 months or so to get the fiber. So getting on the list is important, but we needed to have funds in hand in order to get on that list, and we don't have them yet, and in large part thanks to the county. But the other thing it does for us is to be able to quickly send out RFPs and get on the build schedule for whoever we decide will ultimately, whoever the MIDC, the Midcoast Internet Development Corporation, decides will ultimately build that portion of the network. So the application was a very, I think, professional application, very comprehensive. We had more than 20 letters from businesses in our respective towns, and it was supported by the towns of Rockport submitted it. It was supported by the towns of Camden, Rockland, and Thomaston, which are the first core four towns. So leaving aside what happened yesterday, which I'll let Matt handle, lead the discussion on, we also have been pursuing with MCED the possibility of getting an EDA grant for ARPA funds. The requirements for that in discussions with the EDA have been somewhat shifting. And so what we once thought might meet EDA standards perhaps doesn't. So we're in a little bit of flux with respect to the whole EDA grant.
What's EDA?
I'm sorry, Economic Development Agency.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry. And those are some ARPA funds were given to the EDA. And so we're talking about submitting an application for those. I think about 134 million was provided to the EDA for all of the East Coast, basically. And so whether or not we'll get anything and how much is, very much a question. The other thing is we have, we will circle back, of course, to banks when we need to, but we're really not at that stage at the moment, although we had previously talked to banks. But now I think we're going to rev up our efforts to start doing private fundraising. And there was some sort of legal wrangling, to tell you the truth, over exactly how we were going to do that, because the Midcoast Internet Coalition, or Development Corporation, the MIDC, the regional utility, is a 501c4. So any donations that are made to the 501c4 are not tax deductible to the donor. So we've been working with outside counsel to perhaps create a sister 501c3 entity. But in the meantime, we think we've found a shortcut that would give us immediate 501c3 status through a pass-through organization. And I don't want to get ahead of things and tell you who that is right now, but it is it's a great organization that would be perfect for doing the Rockport build. So anyway, so that's good news. We also have been in some discussions with some towns about some possibilities of maybe pivoting a little bit with respect to our phase 1 build, and in order to get a couple of big clients from day one, big customers. So again, I can't talk about that publicly at this point yet, but that would be another very hopeful thing that I want to share with you, but I'm sorry, I can't fully share the details. So obviously we were very disappointed with what happened yesterday with the Knox County Commissioners. And so I'll ask Matt to lead that discussion. Matt's still here, I think. Yes. And throw it open to questions and about yesterday or anything else.
Good evening, everybody. I hope you are well. And I would just segue off of Deborah to say that in terms of sharing details, this is a public forum. We are actually often monitored, and some of the things we say do come back. So, but I just want to say that if you have questions so much about this organization and the coalition, we are trying to be, so Peter and some of you who are new, and Ashley and Greg, Deborah, myself, Denise, we are available to get on the phone. So if you have questions and specific things that there's a reference to that we say, oh, Ashley, we can't talk about right now. It's not that we don't want to. So please just take the opportunity, send an email. Bob Couric can come all the way down and catch me in the hallway of the Knox County Commissioner's office. And we can have conversations in the hallway privately. So I'm glad to do that. And I'll just use Bob. Hi, Bob. Again, thank you all for coming yesterday. It was a challenging situation in terms of what I'd like to start. The major issue that we had, Jordan, down there was not even about broadband. So I just want to, again, give a larger context, was the fact that we were not allowed to speak. So we were, Greg, so we were shut down. So the public and public officials, public servants were told that we were not allowed to speak, even though there was an agenda item, public comment on non-agenda items, which was on the Knox County Commissioner's agenda. And we had submitted in writing the request to please speak. That request was not responded to. And then when we arrived, again, thank you, Bob and others and John Gibbons, you were there as well. We were told that we would not be permitted to speak. What makes this even more, again, anyone who is a First Amendment freedom of speech person should be rather appalled by that particular situation. And then it went further. It's one thing to have that opinion and to voice it and to try and muscle out free speech. But then our illustrious team, our trio at Knox County, then actually put it to a vote. And they voted 3-0 not to allow free speech. So whatever your interests are in life and in broadband, we're dealing with much more serious and grave situation in terms of some basic democratic values that have been shit upon by our Knox County commissioners. So, and I will just open with that. In terms of the specifics, I'm happy to answer any questions in regards to Knox County. Deborah did a nice introduction in terms of the Pathway Project. There are a number of us who spent endless hours. We were given 14 days to create this application with a deadline of August 31st. We tried to satisfy what we thought would be the requirements that would at least keep us in the running, namely the $750,000 or 25% of a $4 million phase one build. Across the board, if you have not heard, not only were people shut down, not allowed to speak, and again, in terms of context, this was directed towards broadband, but please keep in mind, let's say you happen to be gay, Black, or homeless, and you're told that you're not allowed to speak in public because you're gay, Black, or homeless. It's just appalling the way this was handled. The other thing that was shut down universally without discussion and voted upon yet again was their decision to not back anything involving broadband. And again, they voted upon this early in the meeting. So as they went through and started to vet and decide on which project to accept, all projects related to broadband were rejected immediately. So that is my 2 sentences. I would be happy to answer any questions. And Jeremy, not a shy group usually. And I know Craig Curry down there is not a shy guy. So I will
I was about to say, Matt, I think the one thing I'd add to that it was also extremely disappointing after watching it on live stream was the fact that there was no indication that town-specific programs, because I submitted a town-specific program for broadband, plus a couple of others, they immediately shot that down as well, with no prior warning or indication that doing a town-specific thing was off their radar screen.
Absolutely. Yeah, the process was deeply flawed, Craig.
But I agree with you, Matt. The worst part was the fact that you guys weren't allowed to talk.
So, Mr. Ratner.
The one question I have, I heard that we were not allowed to speak, but that Spectrum was allowed to speak. I'd like to hear about that.
Yes, so in the category of adding insult to injury, and without being overly editorial on this, yes, Melinda Kinney, who is the government representative, who I have, Walter, she was down in South Thomaston, and you guys did a quite remarkable job, you and John Spear specifically, in terms of holding her to the fire in terms of some of her erroneous and inaccurate statements. That was not the case, Mr. Ratner, in terms of her presentation of this go round. As you mentioned, as we were not allowed to speak, Ms. Kinney and Spectrum was allotted, she spoke for 17 minutes. She had a slide pack that she handed out only to the commissioners. That information was not disseminated to the public. And she spoke on the benefits of Spectrum and what they would do for the community. Followed by that 17 minutes was a 12-minute questioning period, nothing but love and adoration for, again, anyone who wants this verified can please listen to the live stream. It was painful and unprecedented in my experience in terms of this particular initiative and endeavor.
And I would just like to add that, picking up on a comment that Matt just made, we know, as in my case, a former select board member and chair, and those of us who are currently or formerly, as in Greg's case, elected officials, we have to publish agendas. We have to make available to the public, as we should, the information, the documents that we're going to be looking at. Otherwise, it's not transparent. It's not a fair process. It's not an inclusive process. And they did not even publish their agenda. They did not make the documents available. I have checked as recently as yesterday. I've never seen any of the applications, the ARPA applications, on their website. They sat there and they went through applications and they talked about applications. None of that was publicly available. In addition to the, shutting down of the comments. So I have to say, being a lawyer, that I am appalled at these people representing our county. And I will personally do everything I can to make sure that none of these three continue to represent our county in the future.
And anything else? Carl, I hope you have better luck in Lincoln. Perhaps you can learn from some of our experiences.
That's why I joined the call, but we're nowhere near what all of you have done. And we have a problem that we're considered served everywhere. So it's going to be a very tough battle here. So I'm just listening in at this point.
Sure. And again, I think there's certainly things to be learned from our experiences. So, and Jeff, you're good. Anything else? Any questions? Again, I don't need to belabor this. I'm happy. Yeah.
Matt, I have a question. What
Hi, Lisa.
What are the next steps now in terms, is it a dead issue with the county? It's all over, we can't get the money? Is there some kind of appeal process, or is there recourse without sort of divulging, anything that you're doing?
Sure, Lisa, I'll take that as a two-parter in the sense that Denise asked that specific question about part one, whether it was a dead issue directly, that she was allowed to stand up and ask one question. And she asked specific to Sharon Pullman, and Sharon Pullman said that it is a dead issue. They would not be considering broadband. And that was on the record. In terms of moving forward, we do have a number of options that we are considering. We have a group meeting in terms of core four, in terms of town managers and select board members and others on Monday. And at that point, we will discuss some of our options moving forward. Does that answer your question, Lisa?
Yeah, I think there's I don't know if there's some sort of PR campaign or something to make people aware of how the money is being funded and how the process is working. And I mean, one of the reasons I've asked Ashley, because she's a genius in terms of crisis management, and to me,
Take it easy.
really
It's
is.
called it. She's either selling you. I was going to say, Ashley, she's either selling you or throwing you under the bus. It's kind of the same with us. It's kind of both. We do it all here.
I would never throw her under the bus. I like her too much as a person.
Okay.
But I'm just wondering if, because I'm not sure you want to take this on if it's a dead issue and it's going to divert you, but Spectrum is going to constantly be in your face. This is not the last time. And I think there has to be a position or a way of dealing with that situation, because it's going to come up again and again, and they're going to go into the towns. The fact that they could speak is really, that's ballsy.
And Lisa, to your point, there's no question about that. And we had learned recently that Spectrum has is putting out feelers to hire a lobbyist to really go after us, and they have a hit list of entities, and we're on it. And so there's no question that we have to, be fighting Spectrum all along the way. That's clear, and that's ongoing. With respect to the county, I would say, because we don't even know what these applications are, we don't know if they fit legally within the ARPA guidelines of what money can be spent on. And we are going to research all that to the nth degree, you can believe me, because if the county commissioners think they're going to spend money on things that are not permitted under the law and the Treasury guidance, then I think they need to think twice, because we will pursue that to make sure that anything, any dollar that's granted is within the law.
See, the problem is when you sort of take them on, you do divert from your mission. That's all I'm saying is it's a double-edged sword.
Absolutely. But the larger question is that you can't have $7.71 million that that's an important grant that's come in. Whether or not it goes to broadband is a different story, but you've got towns here who have an interest in making sure that funds are spent in accordance with the law, regardless of the fact that it's not going to go to broadband.
Deborah,
Sarah.
along the lines of the question Lisa just raised, do media regularly cover? I mean, typically agendas and minutes are published. I've looked on their website. Was a reporter present, Matt? And do they typically cover these commissioner meetings?
Yes, they did. It was in today's Village Soup.
Yeah, and let's just say that we've had reporters contacting us yesterday and today about it, and Matt and I have spoken to them.
Good, okay.
Yeah.
I think
Honestly,
I'm gonna- oh.
Sorry, Sarah has her hand up.
yeah, honestly, my husband and I were absolutely appalled at the commissioner's unanimous refusal to allow members of the towns that they represent to speak at the meeting. I don't know where they get off thinking that it's in their best interest or in the interest of all of the residents of Knox County that they represent to refuse to allow the constituent towns to speak at a meeting. And I frankly would be absolutely delighted if the board were to write an op-ed piece to go in and follow up on the article today, because setting aside, even saying, fine, we're going to go do broadband and we're going to do it on our own, but this is completely unacceptable. And I know that there's a place for op-ed pieces, and I certainly would stand up and applaud. And I think that keeping that type of behavior in front of the voters so that they know what they voted for and what's in place is really important.
I think that's a good point, Sarah. Peter? You're on mute. Sorry, that's my Labrador.
Somebody's dog is.
Peter's
Not to create a
I was
distraction.
gonna say, Peter hasn't eaten, so Peter, maybe have a grab a bite and come on back. We'll be good.
The dog agrees. He's going to volunteer.
But I did get one glass of wine so far. So what was the basis for discounting any consideration of broadband?
And I'll step in on that one. And here's the issue that we're also having, as well as the free speech, that decisions are being made based on personal bias and not on education or information. That was, again, sitting through that, I can't speak for Bob Couric, but certainly to me and to my mind, having spent months working with many of you to research and to create business models and to create technical models and to really go through and do this right and to sit in front of a group that just made unilateral decisions based on personal feelings and bias. So the decision was basically made by Commissioner Merriweather, who led the charge, saying that we had bullied, we being this group, had bullied them, we meaning select board members, broadband members, members of the prominent members of the community, economic advisors, had bullied them. And based on that personal bias, that they were rejecting all broadband projects and proposals.
And also, they made it clear from the very beginning in June, when a whole bunch of us got up and did that presentation. There were a number of this group. Sarah was there, Craig was there. I mean, Cliff Dashow was there. We did this presentation. There were more. Sorry if I didn't name you, but they did a very fine presentation on the importance of this, and this was in June. And they referred to that group as bullying them for having done a very professional presentation, But anyway, my point is, it was clear even going back then that they were in favor of giving money to the homeless. And I'm not trying to make a statement that giving money to the homeless is not a good goal, and whether or not this is the right money to be used for that, I'm not making a statement on either. But the point being is that I think Sharon Pullman and Dorothy Merriweather have never wavered from the idea of giving the money to the homeless, and that's where they're still at. Not to mention the fact that Sharon Pullman used to work for the Homeless Coalition, or what, Matt? I think you know more about that than I do, but she has a pretty interesting potential conflict of interest there.
And how did Spectrum fit into this whole thing? How did Melinda Kinney's presentation relate to this?
We were told, and I'll let Matt say the factual part of, how it fit in, because I was not there, nor have I had the nerve to listen to the whatever patience to listen to the recording yet. But we were told that Spectrum had contacted Dorothy Merriweather, who wanted to have them on the agenda. Whether or not that is in fact how it came to be is another story. And I know that Denise, as a Rockport Select Board member, wrote when we received the agenda on Friday, not because it was posted, but because the town managers received it. Denise immediately wrote to Andrew Hart and asked to be on the agenda to be able to respond to, Spectrum, who's going to get up there and say how wonderful they are and the services that they deliver to our people. Andrew Hart wrote back and said, oh, that has nothing to do with what Spectrum is going to do. Spectrum's presence doesn't have anything to do with your application, which is complete, I'm sorry, bullshit, as we all know. And so I'll just put it out there, and I never swear on these things, but I just couldn't help myself.
It's okay. Deborah, you'll be bleeped out just like PBS.
And so anyway, then she said, well, then, and she, of course, Monday was a holiday. So Tuesday morning, with the meeting being Tuesday afternoon, she again said in writing that then if that was the case, then she wanted to, or she questioned that being the case. And then she said she wanted to be able to speak during the 4-minute public comment period. And then you've already heard what happened with that. So Matt, how did, you were there, and so Spectrum did, what can you summarize sort of the top, or what Spectrum's presentation was?
I could. John Gibbons was there, but I would also just refer back to Walter for one moment. Walter, Spectrum came down to South Thomaston, which I listened in on. What was the procedure by which they appeared on your agenda? Was it just did they solicit the opportunity?
Yeah, they asked, and we granted them a time slot, and I think I threw they probably gave the similar presentation to us. And unfortunately, because we kind of drove her out of our meeting, because they're not exactly the flavor of the month with most users in South Thomaston. They survive only because of their monopoly. And I don't think I retained the presentation, but it was a regurgitation of all they've done. And we do have, I think we don't qualify as underserved because of the amount of cable on our roads that they have, that they inherited, I guess. It's before my time. But of course, they could not answer the technical question of how are you going to come close? We know they can't match fiber speed. They don't have a good answer to that. I think we have a lot of it's good enough constituent. I have a lot of good enough constituents, even though I would say it's hardly good at all. We didn't have closed ears to them, to her. She had a sidekick with her too, whose name escapes me. But at least from my standpoint, they didn't make a dent in changing my view towards this whole thing. By the way, I've already penned a letter to the commissioners, which I sent to Cliff for review, and I'll send it to Lynn and Ann. I'm writing as a private citizen, and asking them to reassess their reluctance to even engage in this. We shall see what happens with that. It's funny, Dorothy's a friend of mine.
She may still think you're a bully, though. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Anybody who writes the letter's a bully.
We've
I don't take you off the hot
clashed
seat.
before.
May I ask a question? And obviously I'm new to much of this, so still kind of getting my grounding, but and acknowledging you don't want to divert too much attention from other things you're moving forward, but is there some value in getting something on the record to the suggestion earlier about an op-ed and or a series of letters that should be publicly available to register your outrage? And what recourse is there for what that, I mean, it seems really outrageous. Perhaps illegal is, too strong a term, but certainly not what publicly elected, officials should be doing. And is there any other instance in which something like that has happened, just to get it on the record, that they're starting out really trying to tie both hands behind your back, and to not let it go unchallenged, both in the media and in some other ways, so there's a public, there's a trail and a public record of it.
I think that's a good suggestion, Ashley, and series of letters, as you said. I do, and there is. I would go so far as to say they are not complying with the law, because we as elected officials know what we have to do to comply with the law, and I can tell you they haven't done it. So, but
where do they get off thinking they can get away with it? I mean, that just
they have. I mean, I think that historically, the county has not had, and we've been told this by others. We've actually been told this by them, that they typically don't have a lot of people showing up at their meetings. They don't have people writing them letters. They don't have people engaging in what they do, because, typically, they're not handed $7.7 million to do something with. And so the whole idea that they would be, they would get all these people writing to them is something that's, that's offensive.
Deborah, can I just interject here? I was shocked. Yeah. I was surprised that they had the meeting at 2:00 in the afternoon. To me, that's not a time.
All their meetings are at 2:00, Brian. They're
that's why I'm not sure there's a reason why people aren't showing up, is that not many people have that flexibility in their schedule to be able to attend these types of meetings. And to me, that's a concern. I think that's important for people to be able to attend and engage these people, so that there's good recourse and process involved.
Matt, did you get a feeling, or we don't even know what portion of the 7 million, didn't they hire some kind of consultant who was going to help them figure out how to divide the pot?
Right. So the consultants coming in has not been hired as of yet. So it's putting the cart before the horse, in the sense that they've started to make their vetting projects ahead of this hired consultant that we as taxpayers are paying for. So again, yes, there is a hired consultant, but they have.
But I think that's a really important issue, because they were supposed to be hiring, they publicly stated, and that's why it goes to, I think, a PR issue in terms of what they're doing. They are paying for a consultant, it's expensive, who's supposed to help them divvy up the money, and yet they're already making decisions about that before the consultant is on board. That makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. And it also makes them lose tremendous credibility, I think. So, I mean, I think one of the messages you want to get across is not only perhaps they're doing something illegally, but they're not doing it in the interest, because the whole thing about broadband is economic development. That's part of it. That's a big piece of it. And the other part is so that our communities can be, attached to the rest of the world. And the other thing is that it seems like there's a big pot of money, and I just don't understand why a portion of it couldn't go to broadband. I think that you have to hold them accountable. And I think it also sends a message to Spectrum that you're not going to back down.
And when you say you, I just want to be clear that it's we. So the only way that this,
but I'm saying the rhetorical you.
And again, in terms of the rhetorical you, the rhetorical me was the guy who was in an open meeting accused of bullying, harassment, and intimidation in a public meeting. So it was Matt Siegel.
But that's what people do who are the bullies themselves.
Exactly. So I'm no shrinking violet, but I would again ask you all, as Walter has opened up this avenue, to please start to contact. We have press that are quite interested and engaged in this topic. So if you need help in terms of drafting letters, more than happy to do that. It sounds like Lisa, you would also be in a position, and perhaps Ashley as well, if people want to draft statements. I'll just say that, yes, just circling back, Amanda Method from Bernstein Schur is the consultant that the county has agreed to hire, and she is available. We're working with Bernstein Schur on a different project, and it just came up that Amanda has been readily available to provide support and consultation to the Knox County Commissioners, and they have not taken the steps to engage her actively. So again, there's so many, Lisa, there's so many issues with this group up there over in the county commissioner's office that I don't want to take too much more of your time, except to say that I would really ask any of you and all of you to be engaged. And this is a good opportunity to, as Walter has suggested, start to get the word out from each of your towns, either as private citizens or as representative of your towns, to get the word out.
Hey, Walter, you have your hand up. Yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't see whose byline was on the article today in Village Soup, but Stephen Betts is an absolute fanatic about executive session and open meeting shenanigans. He's actually challenged us twice this year about executive session, but since we had the power of our town attorney on our side, we straightened him out. But if somebody wants to contact him with exactly the factual, here's what they did, and here's why we think it's wrong, he'll stir the pot because it sells his byline.
Well, and thank you, Walter. Yes, Stephen was who met us in the hallway. So Stephen came after hearing the firestorm, actually came live to the meeting. And
well, he is unlikely to write an opinion about that, the observation, but if somebody gives him his opinion on the subject, then that would perhaps motivate him to go write something about it.
Great, thanks.
A little pot stirring would be good. I mean, I think they need to know you're not going to take this lying down. And, you know, pressure from the media, a flood of letters. You can share with the reporters the letters that you sent. But they ought to get called on it really fast.
And Sarah, you're muted.
You're muted, Sarah.
Thank you. I'd like to suggest that what if we wait a few days? Deborah, you and Matt and company decide if you want to do an op-ed as the, MIDC, and then let us know when it will go in. And I will be happy to write a letter that goes in same day or day after with my opinions on it. And given the politics of my colleagues on the select board here, I will definitely need to be writing as a citizen of Hope and a citizen of Knox County, as opposed to any official capacity. But I'd love to see a letter writing campaign and be a part of it. But it would be nice if we could at least know what you're going to do and then plan our own actions accordingly.
Well, if we want to write a letter as the Midcoast Internet Coalition and have, those who are on the Midcoast Internet Coalition sign off on it, we're happy to do that. And actually, I would ask for some volunteers to do it. We don't need to think about that. I mean, I think that's certainly something that we'd be happy to have done.
And is this something that we could seek advice or help from the Maine Municipal Association, or is that out of their purview?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I don't think that would necessarily get us anywhere, Jordan. I mean, what are you talking about, them weighing in, or?
No, I'm just talking about the procedurally what happened as far as blocking them out. And I mean, I know that the Knox County Commissioner as well as Waldo County kind of operate without oversight or impunity, but there's got to be some kind of governmental board that can regulate or is set up to look over things like this.
Well, there's statutes that require all elected officials, whether you're a state representative or a municipal official, to abide by certain open meetings and so forth requirements. And that's, you know, that's applicable to the county as it is any other elected official.
Well, thank you. I think if it's okay with you, oh, hello, Greg, sorry.
Yeah.
Right.
I was just wondering if we could share these letters, or if that's a no-no. Being new on this, I would love to get some of the details that have gone on, so that if we do do a letter writing campaign, or as a group writing, we're all on the same page.
Yeah, wait, that's a good idea, Greg. We can share that. And to your question of whether it's a no-no, you know, again, this is not an official entity. It's a group of volunteers. We have no, you know, we have no status. So yes, we can do that.
Okay,
And
thank
I
you.
would put out there, it sounds like it might be a good time to reconvene our marketing and communications group. So Lisa and Ashley, perhaps we can talk, and Melissa has expressed interest. Hello. And others who might be interested. I will put out an email to everyone, just soliciting participants to get that going. Greg, that would be, to your point, someplace where we would, again, a central hub where information could come and go and be vetted. And I'll just close with a quote from Dorothy Merriweather. "We are under no obligation to allow the public to speak. I will not allow the public to speak." Quote unquote. Thank you, Stephen Betts. And with that,
and with that,
democracy,
moving on.
let's move on.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda is because I think the MIDC regional utility, yeah. And where we stand on that, we have not had our first board meeting, and the reason is, and this is no criticism whatsoever, but as you know, Thomaston and Rockland have both their select board and city council respectively had voted to join the MIDC, and so the MIDC needs to act on those requests. Rockland had to redo some of its paperwork, and so we have not received Rockland's final paperwork. So once that is done, then we will schedule a board meeting. We have only done thus far very administrative tasks, setting up bank accounts, et cetera, as I've talked to you about before, and we've done that through unanimous written consent, which we can do under our bylaws and under non-for-profit statutes. Axiom Technologies, and I know that this is a subject near and dear to a lot of you. Axiom is working on the feasibility studies. I know that you continue to hear that. Mark had some issues, family issues, some medical issues. And, you know, so life intervenes for all of us sometimes. He's also had some very pressing business issues as well. Although he has given us a preliminary feasibility study to review for the core 4 towns, it needs some modification. But let me just say that for certain of those towns, the feasibility, you know, it's a very, very feasible project, very viable project, and even much more so than we had initially thought. Perhaps for other towns, it's not quite as financially viable, but together as a region, I think that it is the best way to go for all of us, which is something that we recognized a long time ago. But anyway, that's the cliff notes, but we are, as I alluded to earlier, we're working on a possible phase 1A sort of the initial build. And we just can't talk about that publicly, but I'm happy to, share that with people if you want to give me a call or give Matt a call.
And I'll just give a heads up, Deborah, we're at 5:50, just so you know.
Yep. So it's not as short a meeting as I thought. Okay, so anyway, well, there was a lot of, griping obviously about what happened with the county, and I guess I should have anticipated that. I think, I mentioned what our funding strategy is. So I think we've really covered item 6. So that gets us to item 7. If anybody would like to report developments in their communities or region that they'd like to share. Walter, was your hand up before, or is that?
No, this is new.
Okay.
So it's never too late to do the right thing. So we signed the engagement letter with Axiom last night, sent it to Mark today, and he received it. So that process will start as soon as he gets cranked up.
Great. Great. John Gibbons. You're on mute.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah, we're waiting for the Axiom study. Do they give you any time frame for when they'll be able to deliver their results?
In a word, no. I mean, I have to say that it's not because, you know, they, as I said, they did give us some numbers, but last Friday, I think I told you, or Monday, John, when you and I emailed back and forth that we were meeting with Mark. But he needs to go back and make some changes on some things. And in all defense of him, as I say, we keep pivoting with respect to what phase 1 looks like, based on things like what happened yesterday. So, and new information that we get. So it's definitely not, just his fault. And with respect to Union, I encourage you to, any of the towns that, that are not in the core 4, I urge you to contact Mark directly and ask him when you can expect it for your town.
I emailed him 3 weeks ago and he never responded.
Email him again, call him.
All right.
And John, you can CC me if you'd be so kind.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Hello, Josh. Welcome back. How's it feel being married, Josh?
It's good.
You look younger and taller and all those kind of things.
You flatter me, Matt. So in Lincolnville, we have an RFP out for a feasibility study, and proposals are due back tomorrow. So hopefully we get a few consultants that want to work with Lincolnville.
Great. And I wanted to bring your attention to the chat. Thank you, everybody. Some people are posting some good things in the chat for us to take a look at. And somebody had requested that I back up and explain Axiom Technologies. Axiom Technologies is an internet service provider, but they're also the entity that we had engaged, we being the MIDC, to do a feasibility study for the core 4 towns. And additionally, some of the other towns have individually engaged them to do feasibility studies for their towns as well. So those, I don't know if you want any further explanation, but I really want to hear from other towns or areas that want to chime in.
Deborah, it's Brian Doyle. We're just waiting for the feasibility study to be going forward, and I've explained to folks it's on a little bit of a later timeline than expected. And then once we gather that information, obviously this stuff is changing every day in terms of what's happening around this topic, we'll circle wagons and try and figure out what our next best steps are. And we're sort of waiting for that document to sort of prove that this is a viable, this is a good model to move forward with. And we hope to get that and take it where it leads us.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. And once we get the full MIDC board on board, all 4 towns, it'll be a little easier communication among us. So as I said, we're just waiting on that the Rockland documents. Okay, anybody else?
Oh, Melissa, we do so want to know what's happening in Hope.
I don't really have any updates.
That's perfect.
Just chugging along.
Do you have a good bottle of red wine then?
Yes.
Did you find? Okay.
Peter Beckett, I do have to say, Peter Beckett is in Appleton leading their broadband group, and he and I.
And Melissa froze. You froze, Melissa.
Melissa froze. You need fiber.
And so she needs broadband.
Yeah, I was going to say I did have the CARES Act 100 megabytes up and down, and I just did a speed test because I've had trouble in this meeting, and I'm at 3. So I don't know what's going on today. LCI, I will be checking in with them tomorrow. So Peter Beckett's in the UK for 2 weeks. We have a meeting coming up. It's slow going. We've been told that they are overextended, which we sort of anticipated or knew. They're still in Bremen, and when the manpower in Bremen is freed up, it'll be put onto the Hope and Appleton expansion project. But the latest news is that might not happen till December. There were RFPs that were supposed to go up before Labor Day. Then it's supposed to be going out in October, and we're hoping we have a little bit more updates at our next meeting in 2 weeks. And so I think we've had, I don't know, 10 installations with this new expansion grant that started in July.
Walter, your hand is up. I mean, I'm sorry, Brian Doyle.
Thank you, Deborah. Has there been any, and I arrived a little bit late, my apologies, so you may have already touched this. Have there been any other community networks that have watched what occurred last night? Have they reached out to you to offer guidance, suggestions, or anything like that? Or is it just basically, the same old folks that we're connected to here in Maine? I'm just curious, how far and wide has this story gone? Because it seems like it's pretty remarkable of what happened.
I will only say that I shared it this afternoon with the VCBB, the VBCC over in Vermont, the folks that I've been working with in Vermont, just as of this afternoon, to get their feedback.
Okay. Just curious what the response was. Thank you.
I'll let you know.
Okay, I think that I don't see any other hands up in terms of other anybody else wanting to comment. So thanks. It is 2 minutes to 6. Our usual.
I'm going to take those 2 minutes just to end on a happy note. That the fact that this group is wonderful and has been working very hard, and it's multifaceted and engaged in more activities than just the physical build of a fiber optic network. And I'll just mention 2 that have been going along quite well. One is our relationship as a development corporation and as a coalition with the local ISPs to train a local workforce. So we're working with the Midcoast School of Technology, and I'm actually working with a national organization called the Fiber Broadband Association to develop the 3rd program in the United States for fiber technicians, a certified program that would be launched out of Rockland. So that's pretty exciting. And again, this group that has been working with the Maine Department of Labor and with the Fiber Broadband Association, along with Midcoast School of Technology. And those guys at Midcoast, if you don't know them, are fantastic. It's a great group. So just wanted to mention that. And then the other relationship that I would ask you please to be aware of is our new relationship with the Knox Clinic and this new Coastal Cares Community Coalition. So this is a coalition of basically medical facilities and practitioners. And one of the things that they expressed universally is that they will need affordable, sounds like our little token, they basically need reliable and affordable broadband for telehealth. And so we have joined that officially as of last week. So again, Meredith Batley over at Knox Clinic and one of our members, Cliff Dashow, has been wonderful in that and has included us in terms of the development of that coalition. So those are some positive things to end with.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. And we spent a lot of time talking about the the problems with that occurred yesterday. But I hope you all know that we are undeterred and we are going forward and we are going to raise these funds one way or another. All right, John, did you have
just a couple of quickies, clarification. You said, I believe you said that there was a phase 1A in the planning process. The details are confidential right now. We should contact you directly.
Yeah, you could contact me directly and I'd be happy to share more thoughts about that. And it's not, I wouldn't say it's in the planning process, it's in the consideration process. And but anyway, yeah, give me a call, John. It's fine.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, I got 2 more conference calls tonight, so please don't call me tonight, but call me tomorrow is fine. Okay.
Fine. I'll email you. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, fine.
Let's set something up. All right. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
And thank you, new folks, Greg, Lynn, nice to see you. Jeff, didn't hear from you, but I hope things are well. If there are things in St. George to discuss, please check in anytime, Jeff. Look forward to it.
All right. It's 6:01, everybody. 6:02. So thank you very much and take